I think I just... Excited to be here today with you, Sarah Miller from Harvard Student Agency's Chief Commercial Officer for quite a few years there, and the newest addition to the board for the Student-Run Business Association, the SRBA. We're really excited to have you joining the board, Sarah, and I wanted to take just a few minutes to learn about you and your background, what brings you to the SRBA, some insights into big ideas that you might have, whatever might be getting you excited about it. But the first question I wanted to start out with, to let folks get to know you best, is over the past, how many years have you been at HSA?
It's 11 and a half now.
Over the past 11 and a half, that's a long time. Over the past 11 and a half years, is there any experience that really stands out to you as the most challenging for you personally? And maybe you add something in if there's anything really bizarre or surprising that happened during those 11 years that stands out to you.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me today, Owen. I really appreciate the chance to chat with you. Your question is an interesting one. I've definitely had a lot of surprising things happen here at my time at HSA, but I would say probably one of the initial most challenging situations was we run, the students run part-time, obviously, during the 2 semesters during the school year, and then we work full-time over the summer. And so I think it was my second or third summer. And we had a manager on the first day of full-time work wanted to speak with me and our managing director of the Harvard shop. And he said, "Hey, I want to do research. I don't want to do this job full-time. So how are you guys going to help me out?" And I was like, but we hired you to do a job for the summer and it starts today and you're here and now you're saying you don't want to come back after lunch. So that was definitely a moment that I was not expecting, because I really thought, everybody was kind of feeling the way I was feeling, that we were locked in, we were ready to go. And so having to pivot at that moment was really stressful.
Right.
So being able to,
emotionally challenging too, probably. Oh gosh, where is this coming from?
Where is this coming from? This is someone that, I've now worked with for a solid amount of, because our hiring happens in the fall. So, we have the students really do sort of turnover around Thanksgiving, and then the new team really locks in spring semester. So I really thought we had a team and we were ready to go. So yeah, it was emotional, and learning to sort of navigate that was probably one of the initial difficulties that I had with the job, because I learned at that point that to sort of expect the unexpected, and that even, with the best intentions and the best teams, that there are times that you have to be flexible and fluid and be able to make those changes. So luckily, our president that year had actually been in that position that the student was leaving. So we were able to together support the position until we were able to bring someone on midsummer. So it was sort of learning at that point that I was here not only to back up the business, but sometimes to physically step in and really learn how to do that job, because, we had to keep going.
Yeah, whatever it takes, got to keep the business going.
Absolutely, keep the lights on. So that was the first time that really hit home for me, was that I really, getting in there and supporting. So
So since then, your posture's shifted and you're just open to anything could go wrong at any time. So we can't surprise.
Anything can happen, and I can't be surprised anymore. I can't let myself be surprised. I just have to accept what's happening and see which parts of it that I can control, that my team can control, and then how we can best learn from what happened, and then be able to, pivot in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. I think that's a good story. I was expecting, I have to say, something like a truck delivering HSA merch spilled out and everyone started grabbing shirts, but
well, I will say probably
you have those.
The easiest one I've ever heard was when I was home watching the news with my significant other, and he said, wow, there's a truck on fire on the highway. And I said, oh, that's funny. And then they shifted over the camera, and it was a U-Haul full of bigger beds, which were headed to HSA Cleaners, which is right behind you. And I remember texting my boss, Jim McKellar, at the time to be like, is that us? And he was like, yes, period. And I was like, all right, well, that's a new one. But again, I wasn't surprised because you just never know, especially with these kinds of businesses. So
anything can happen. Yeah, Jim, another board member with the HSA. That's right. That we previously with the HSA, now with the SRBA, who we also need to interview. Okay, thank you, Sarah, for that story. I also wanted to just dig in a little bit on your personal background. Now, I did some sleuthing. I had hired a private detective, did a lot of. I Googled you, looked at your LinkedIn. And we've had some conversations before, but I know that you came out of UMass Lowell. Is that where you ended up getting your undergraduate degree, studying literature? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I was an English major at UMass Lowell. I just at that point in my life thought that maybe I would go into teaching. Maybe I would try my hand at writing. I really wasn't sure when I graduated. And I ended up in more of a customer service type vein and really sort of enjoyed that type of work I was doing. I was working in the recreation fields, specifically in skiing, and I really loved being in that world. And I did that for quite a while before I made the shift into retail, which was sort of a surprising shift for me. But there was something about being in the store that I really loved, and I really thrived, running my own team and keeping track of payroll and watching budgeting. And there was just something about all of that that really made sense to me. And so when the opportunity first came up with HSA, all it said in the ad was that it was for a retail manager at Harvard. So I was like, well, I'm looking to get out of my current position, and this will probably look good on my resume if, I get the job. And then I came in and found out that it was retail, but it wasn't. And so it was learning to navigate that part of the job at first was really difficult because I was used to being the boss and having a team and having people really understand. And now I was sort of a dotted line to these people, and I needed to mentor and help them grow.
A quasi support role. But still the buck stops with you if somebody decides to no-show.
Of course, the buck still stops with me if they try to do anything crazy. But so that's really sort of how my employment trajectory worked. And then initially my job here at HSA was just a contract 1 year, because I think at the time the board wasn't sure if the position made sense for what they were trying to do and really trying to grow the business. But I really fell in love with it. I fell in love with working with the students, and I fell in love with the idea of teaching, but on a much more real life level than in the classroom. These are, real life skills that we're teaching. This isn't just a hypothetical where the decisions you make in your business are actually impacting future teams and the future of our, agency as a whole. So there was just something about that I really responded to. And I've just been, I can't stress enough how blessed I am to have ended up here and to stayed here as long as I have. So every year and every team is a new chance and a new opportunity. And I really just look forward to that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Really interesting, because it is a unique story for somebody not to know what they're getting into when they first get involved with one of the student-run business programs. But I guess you were on your toes, agile.
I hope so. I think so. I think I still am. So yeah, but I think at the time it was so great to be a little bit out of that traditional retail grind and being able to look at it through a more open lens, I suppose.
Yeah. So you like retail, and you said that you had gotten into skiing before then. Is that right? Did I?
Yeah. So my first job out of college, I worked at a small ski area here in Massachusetts, and started out initially doing mostly customer service and some basic sales. And then I ran the group sales department for 8 years before I moved on.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. So you had some good small business experience, sales experience, and then brought that into HSA. So over the past 10 years in your role, what are some things that you've seen change with HSA, or is there anything that you've like really leaned into and found important to help shape or make possible personally?
I definitely think that the business itself has changed over the last few years, as well as the businesses that live under the umbrella of HSA. While the Harvard Shop still remains our largest business, um, we acquired a tour company in the last 3 years, Trademark Tours, that runs tours of MIT and Harvard. So that's been really interesting, is like adding that type of business underneath our umbrella, as well as watching our education agencies. So we have one specifically for tutoring, and then one around what we call academies, which are like summer pre-professional programs. And those did great during sort of the COVID lockdown when everything went remote. And then over the last couple of years had kind of had to find their footing again when we started bringing people on campus to do these types of in-person programs. And so that's been fun to be supporting that mission and having like high school kids coming through our, doors and being able to be taught these great programs. So I think what's changed is just having the businesses kind of grow and work with the times. And that's been really fascinating to see. I think the students themselves over the last 10 years are still college students. And so they bring such a level of joy and enthusiasm to what they're doing. And I love the fact that I always think of HSA as sort of a break from their day-to-day college experience. And they have this opportunity to build their own community within, in our case, within Harvard, that they, find other students who are interested in really getting their hands dirty and understanding how the business works from the front end to the back end, and getting this full life experience while they're still in college.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. You're not only learning the ins and outs of the businesses, but you're building your own community. And that's a really important part of getting any business to succeed.
It really is. And it's just amazing now at this point. I've been here so long to like see people, fall in love and get married and starting to have families of their own. And they were people that met here at HSA. And like, that just warms my heart that we're like sort of creating this next generation community.
Holistic, too. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that segues into another question that I would have for you, which is, what do you think how have you personally grown over the past 10 years at HSA? I know I also want to see like a professional, or understand that from a professional sense. So maybe personal ways that you've been challenged. We already discussed one at the outset. So anything else that you'd like to mention? And then like, where has it challenged you intellectually? We can do that next.
Sure. I think professionally, what's really helped me was to, I really think it made me a better leader, because it taught me patience in a level that I didn't necessarily always have in my past jobs, because I was working with other adults, and we had a job, we had an expectation, and we needed to meet that. And I don't know that I was always as flexible as I could be in this role, due to the nature of the work that we're doing and the students that we're working with. Flexibility and patience has to be built into everything you're doing, because while I truly believe that the work that I do is really important, and I think HSA is really important, these are full-time students at a very tough school that they need to be getting their degree. Their degree comes first. HSA comes way after that. So I think really for me, it was the understanding that, while the work can be important to me, that it wasn't everything for them, and that I needed to help them strike that balance so they could still be successful in school as well as in HSA. So I think that was probably one of my best professionals. How do you do that?
I can't help but to dig in on that a little. This is such an interesting point, but you're spot on. Like, everybody has their own priorities in life in general. But in this case, you've got this really unique challenge. Not only do the businesses that you're running at HSA, that the students are running, have so many employees, 900, it's a lot to manage, significant revenues, it's very real. And they're responsible for that. But like you said, they've also got this thing that's much bigger, and that everybody has to agree is the first priority. Absolutely. So how do they continue to succeed and grow these assets while it's secondary. How do you make that work?
You know how you make that work is that you have the right professional staff to support them, to be fully transparent. It's not even just myself, but it's the 3 members of our business office. It's our GM, Todd. It's our, retail manager, Tessa, and our operations manager, Shayna. It's having that backbone that is always there to be the ultimate sort of backstop if you need to run a tour, if you need to open the store, so that we're there to kind of bear the brunt of that. But also it's about expectation management. So it's, for me, it's really getting every manager in my office on a regular cadence to really check in with where they are. And that's not just where they are at HSA, but where they are in class. Have they taken on too much? So what can I take off their plate? How can we kind of shift their priorities? And how do we make sure that they have enough time for that paper that's due, that exam that they have? Plus, we need to get the new assets out for the marketing. So my job is really to say to them, okay, let's lay all that stuff out and let's really look at these timelines. Can we reuse an email that we've used in the past? Sure. Customers never remember that kind of stuff. So I come up with those ideas to help them be creative, to still be able to meet those work deadlines while leaving them enough time to do their other things. So it's all about creating the relationship with the students so that they can feel the comfort level with not just myself, but the rest of the professional staff to be honest with us about what's going on. If you're failing a class, sorry, I don't want to see you in the office. I want to see you in office hours. I want to see you shifting your responsibilities, whether that's to myself or another member of your team. Because I think the best thing you can learn at that young age is accountability. And I think that's what we're trying to bring to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a terrific lesson and balance or sense of awareness to learn at any stage. Following up on that, what are some of the most important things that you have helped? So what I read was two items. One, you're creating an environment and a relationship in which they can succeed, be successful.
Absolutely.
But number 2, you're also setting things up, framing things in a certain way, and teaching them how to approach challenges in a way where they're more likely to come up with the right answer, have a successful implementation. What are a couple things that stand out to you that are really important for every student who wants to lead or run these businesses to know, to succeed? What are the recurring themes?
I think the recurring themes are people with good time management and people who are realistic about the goals that they're setting. Because we can have people come in and say, I'm going to turn this business around. I'm going to take a $100,000 business and make $1 million. And you can say, okay, that's such a great plan. But let's stop for a second and think about how many hours are in your week. Okay. How many classes are you taking this semester? What are those classes that you're taking this semester? Oh, are you writing a thesis this semester? Does $1 million now seem like maybe a little much if you only have 10 to 15 hours to give to it? And just sometimes it's really just pushing back on the question, not the question, on their sort of statement and saying, okay, I'm not saying it's a bad idea. Money's great. I want to make more money. Fantastic. But I need you to be realistic about how you're going to get there, because it's not the idea, it's the execution.
Right. So picking the right goals so that you can be successful in your execution.
Absolutely.
Because without execution, we don't have any progress.
That's exactly it. I think it's really and that's really how I see my position is I want to be that sounding board, and I never want to be negative, and I never want to tear anybody down. I just want them to sort of see all sides of the situation so that, again, they can make the best choice for themselves.
Right. So I think I've seen that also come out in Jim. I almost want to give it kind of.
I want to give Jim all the props for that because I learned everything that I am doing now from Jim McKellar.
Well, I don't want to give him all of the credit, but yeah, that's cool.
Yes, that was very much something
that. Kind of a Socratic type of approach where you guys are saying that part of your role is just to ask the right questions, make sure that they have awareness. That's really cool. Thank you for
present and asking those questions. It's just being a part of their day to day, which sometimes that can be the hardest part, is just getting them to have some time for you. But once you can make that work, then everything else falls into place.
Yeah. I think another thing that kind of stands out there is that the students, that approach acknowledges that the students are fundamentally pretty ambitious. They're setting, like, it sounds to me like you spend a little less time motivating and inspiring and a little more time regulating and like helping to steer. Is that fair?
I would say that's fair. I think there's some years that there's more motivation needed. I would look back to, when we were fully remote, like in the years of, fiscal years like 20, 21, 22, when things were still, the stores were closed, and like being able to sort of motivate via Zoom, that obviously led to a whole different set of challenges. But
Right.
I would say in the last couple of years, it's definitely more about like regulating and again, managing those expectations for the students.
Last question on this thread, but tell me a little bit about that experience too, because you guys made big moves during COVID. Like you said, everything was shook up. Students are no longer in the office. Very easy to lose motivation. But then that's like exactly the moment when HSA made its biggest moves towards growth in the past decades. That I know, like at least in the past like 15, 20 years. And you've now expanded by another like 5-6 million annual revenues since then.
13 last year. So
yeah, that's huge. And you pioneered like new business models, which we're going to talk about soon in the upcoming search exchange. But yeah, I am curious. So sometimes the students are motivated and you're helping to steer and facilitate. Other times you got to get them going. How did you guys make that happen? What were some of the tools or methods that you used? What did you find success with?
I think it was, especially during that time, it was really the knowledge that the students had the passion to want to keep as much of our businesses running as possible. And so it was not just so much like me motivating them, but it was sort of me fulfilling their needs from home. So that really meant, like, in that case, I was really mostly supporting the Harvard shop because it was the easiest sort of initially of our businesses to keep running because we already had an online platform, and we just needed, to be honest, I just needed to be fulfilling orders. Like I did that 3 days a week for a year to make sure that like the orders came in. So what I was just asking for, I said to the students at that time, like, I'm so happy to do this. What I need you to do is keep me well stocked, keep emails going out, and help me support our customers. And I will be on the ground. The UPS guy and I became, best of friends, and I didn't see many other people, but it worked, and we were able to keep everything running. And I think through that sort of motivation that I kind of wanted to put myself out there for them really helped out, because then in our other businesses, we could start to think about, okay, what's going to make sense for us? Everyone's home, everyone's homeschooling. That's where the tutoring and sort of academies, like virtual programs, made so much sense because parents were desperately looking for something to do with their students. And we filled this great niche. Now, of course, there were some of our businesses like our, dorm essentials and the cleaners that physically just couldn't run during that time. But we always knew that they were going to come back. Once students were back on campus, we knew that that was going to happen. And with the help of both like Jim, our GM at the time, as well as our president, George, like we were really able to keep everybody going through, again, regular Zooms, regular communication, spending time together, as awkward as all that was. You started to like learn how to navigate that. The students that year, like we really encouraged them to send us like home videos, and we did like MTV Cribs style tours of everyone's homes. So like you felt like you understood what was going on. We met everybody's pets. Like there was just like fun ways to be able to keep them engaged. And I think, to be honest, HSA at that time gave those students who were involved an outlet that they may have otherwise not had.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of the work that we did there. And then that did lead us to the acquisition of Trademark Tours, as well as the conversations we started having with our now current landlord of our newest Harvard shop location, which ended up being our most successful. So it was just all happening during that time period that we were able to, really shift and, get into some great new things, which led to so much more growth in our business.
Yeah. Wow. Really, I mean, you guys really pulled it off. Thank you for adding in some color there, but it's an inspiring story and there's a lot to it, but the expansion that you were able to achieve during that time. So it's definitely kudos to the approach.
Thank you.
Okay, so you developed into this title, which is a new title. It wasn't always there, Chief
No.
Commercial Officer. Could you tell us just a little bit about that position? What is the position description basically, and why do you feel it's so important to the success of your program and businesses?
So the way it was initially described to me was that the chief commercial officer is someone who really looks after the quality of the product, the customer service behind that product, leading to larger revenues.
Mhm.
And so it felt like a natural fit for me because I had initially started my career here at HSA with just the Harvard shop. And that was really what I was doing with those students, was really having them look at their products, how we were presenting them, how we were selling them, who we were selling them to, how we were selling them. And then that did lead us to larger revenues. And so when I was given this opportunity, it was in the way I was looking at it was like kind of the work I was doing with the Harvard shop with just all of our other businesses. And so
Right.
I like to look at myself as support staff. I want to be their number one cheerleader. I want to be the one who is hearing all of their great ideas and helping them to actually get them to fruition so that we're not just spitballing, we're really taking these wonderful ideas, shaping them, and being able to sell this wonderful product, which in turn would lead us to, larger revenues and in the ability to hire more students. And again, just the self-sustaining nature of our business.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, one of the things I love about you and the way that you've approached your role is that you're attuned to the importance of actually getting the business to grow and being like on top of all the different factors that play into it.
Yeah.
And I like the title that you hold, even though it's unique, and I don't think I've heard that from any of our other members, because I think it draws attention to the fact that these businesses are businesses and need to succeed commercially.
Yes.
Um, so let's like hard pivot over to, well, maybe not too hard, but over to SRBA and your role coming into the SRBA. I'd love to hear, I know that we've talked about it before, but if you could share what stands out to you as being the biggest opportunities or things that you have your eye on for SRBA to contribute to the community, to help grow it, keeping an eye towards the mission of supporting students as they learn by launching and leading enterprises.
I just think that SRBA is such a unique organization. One of the things that like I said, when I first joined HSA, I didn't even know that student run businesses were really something that existed. It was not something that existed at UMass Lowell when I was there, 20 years ago. And I always think back as to like, I would have thrived in this environment as a college student. So I'm super passionate about the idea that more schools should be open to student run business and they should be supported by their schools because this is teaching skills that are so far beyond the classroom and they don't work at odds with one another. I think with the right businesses, you're both supporting the school, the students, you're making a little bit of extra money, but you're running this fully completed business at such a young age, and what just an amazing gift to give to the future generation. So I'm just really passionate about the idea of growing the SRBA and being able to, take the knowledge that I've learned over these last couple of years and be able to help some of these schools to think about what kind of business might work best serving their community and then how to really make that into fruition. And I know for certain schools, they're so open and excited about this. So like, I'd love to be able to see some of those programs grow even more because I just think that we have an endless possibility of businesses for this age group.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, one thing that I've loved about HSA in general and its approach since we started the org was how open and supportive you guys are at in expanding the size or the number of schools, opportunities for students to learn in this way.
Absolutely.
I think that's important because you've gotten, sometimes it may seem like, to look at Harvard for this, it's I don't know the right way to put it, but it seems like Harvard's so big and they're so different than us. People may feel like they can't apply those principles, but I think in reality, HSA just has been fortunate, fortunate location, fortunate history, has had an opportunity to really hone the craft. And that you're so interested and passionate about sharing that with other people is a huge opportunity for all of us.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. I think some people really sometimes are unsure because of, the name and Harvard being who they are. But I think that, again, within our own, smaller HSA community, it's a different world here. And we really just want to share what we've learned. And we really want to, help other other student run businesses be able to succeed. So we're just excited to be a member.
Fantastic. All right. Anything else that you'd like to say to the community? I think this was a terrific dive into you, a little bit of your background. I'm sure we didn't cover anywhere near all of it. I feel, yeah, I feel much more prepared to chat with you at the upcoming Surge Expo at Penn this year, where we will see you there.
Absolutely. I will be there.
So I think if folks are listening to this, hopefully they have some ideas. They can reach out to you on Slack or find you at the event and connect. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that pretty much covers everything. It's been nice chatting with you today, and I look forward to, connecting with everyone later on this year.
Yeah. All right. You too. And we are ending on time. All right. Thanks, Sarah. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Owen.